Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, a new political violence poll. Also, lawmakers want to legislate piety and allegiance. And President Donald Trump is touting the benefits of CBD.
Is that a joint, man? That goddamn looks like a quarter pounder, man.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em, but not in Alabama. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V from Paros, Greece. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, a half a world away, the greatest columnist and investigative reporter I know, and my friend.
Nice.
Welcome.
Nice.
Welcome.
Hi, guys.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Speaking of half a world away, we've been in Paros, Greek, this week, and one of the spectacular islands, a very small island here.
Beautiful.
But that is where they first mined marble here. One of the big locations they gathered marble to build the Parthenon and other great statues here that have lived through antiquity. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. And Josh, you know, you've traveled, and when you're traveling, it not only changes you, but it gives you a bigger perspective of the world. And when we talk to people here that are from all over Europe and South America and different places, they are concerned about our nation. And just like our people at home, they are worried about the rising political violence in America. And you know, we've seen it before in Alabama, we've seen it before in Alabama and America. But the thing is, a recent poll from Quinnipiac showed that 71% of Americans now believe that political violence is on the rise, and few have confidence that it's going to subside simply because of the rhetoric that is coming out of politicians' mouths.
And that's up since just June. In June, it was 54.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's rising rapidly among opinions.
But these people believe, and the other nations are worried about it. They worry about the destabilization of the world because of what's happening in the United States.
Yeah, listen, it's understandable. It's also, I think, I think that poll is kind of indicative of how easily it is to convince people of certain things, because I don't necessarily think that political violence is rising that much. We've got violence of all sorts around here. Okay,
yes.
We've had mass shootings left and right for a very long time. As a matter of fact, political violence is fairly uncommon around
yes,
here. Actually shooting somebody over their political beliefs is fairly uncommon. Now, what we do have a lot of are people, and it's great that we're talking about this, because we actually had a podcast this week with someone from the Trace, Jennifer Marcia, who has been covering gun violence in the United States for decades now, and she talked about some of the things behind the violence that we see with mass shooters and folks going into school, and what we really have is kind of what psychologists and other folks who she's talked to believe is we have an isolation problem of folks who especially among young males, young white males mostly. That they get kind of disenchanted with life. They get into these silos online, and they get into these communities. And we just saw this with the Charlie Kirk shooter. It wasn't so much, I know it was his political speech that led to ultimately the shooting. But I think what kind of coerced the guy that shot him into doing this was he was in one of these silos online. He was into these communities and stuff where they kind of encourage this sort of stuff, and they all feel disenfranchised and disenchanted with life, and that things haven't been fair to them, and institutions that they thought were going to protect them and move them forward in life are not. And so they take up weapons, and that's another part of this. Is at some point, I think we all can look at this and say, "Hey, we got a lot of folks that are mentally unstable. How about we try to stop them from obtaining the weapons to do mass damage and political violence of all sorts?"
Well, that's true, and if you here in Greece, it is very difficult to get a firearm. Most people don't even think about owning a firearm. The police, the military have them, and certain individuals can have them for hunting and sporting and things like that. But they're very, very rare. If you talk to a homeowner here, especially in the Cyclades, they don't worry about those types of things. They don't worry about that.
Well, Bill, what do they hold in their
life.
Facebook profile photos then?
I have no idea. I don't know what they.
How do they prove
hold
their
in that thing.
masculinity without those weapons?
I know.
I don't know.
But it is, but we see people worried about it, and I agree with you. One of the other things we've seen, though, again, is the rise of hate. Just this past week over at Alabama, over at A&M in Huntsville, the Hill, they had a threat. The email started with, "You N-words, and we're going to pipe bomb you, and there's going to be shootings and all this stuff." And it is just, the rise in racism goes hand in hand with this siloed, and also our politicians' speech. It goes to that. It is the political speech.
Yeah, I mean, this is a continuation of what we've seen with a lot of these threats to HBCUs that have come down. Alabama State had one a couple weeks back as well, where they had to basically shut down the campus, had everybody kind of shelter in place while they ran through, because it was a very serious, specific threat. I talked to Quentin Ross about it, and it was, they had to get the police out there, and the campus police and some other law enforcement agencies out to try to help them with this. And it was it was a very scary situation for a period of time. But you're right, it is, and we've become this sort of callous indifference to others that we've got now, and this almost gleeful and willful efforts by our leadership to hurt people. And one of the biggest examples of this, what happened last week, when the Secretary of Defense, I mean maybe the Secretary of War now, I don't know, determined that they were going to give the awards back to the soldiers from Wounded Knee. Who's asking for that? And it's just a poke in the eye to a group of people who have been so harmed and so marginalized, and that was such an atrocious event in our history that took place. And to come back and say it's just it's so awful, man. It's just, and that's the awfulness I'm talking about, that's spilling from the top.
It is. It's the hatred is everywhere. It's coming out of almost all of the speeches you hear, which is trickling down to these people who are in the silos. That all this does is fuel their hatred, fuel them to go out and do these atrocities that we're seeing so much more often now.
Once again, I would remind that we do not hear words of unity coming from the White House, coming from the Senate, and coming from the State House here in Alabama. I haven't heard, to any large degree, anyone in the congressional delegation in Washington or in the State House saying, listen, we're all Americans. We all need to come together. We just don't hear it. And that is tremendously disturbing, because Katie Britt, Tommy Tuberville, Governor Ivey, Speaker Ledbetter, Garland Gudger, they all ought to be speaking out on how we are not Democrats, we are not Republicans, we are not independents, we are Americans, we are Alabamians. We will rise above this together. But we do not hear those words of comfort, Susan and Josh. But anyway, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Pray for them, Lord. This past week, pre-filed bills were introduced to make it mandatory that people, school students, say the Pledge of Allegiance in class, or the schools will lose funding. The school boards have to get together and mandate piety also, in which the classes need to pray, and they have to pray or they're going to lose funding. So, Susan, basically what we're doing is we're legislating allegiance to the United States and prayer, which I would assume we're not going to do any Islamic calls to prayer. So, but this is a threat. If you don't do this, we're going to take your funding. Now, there used to be a Supreme Court that said you can't do this sort of thing, but now it appears that Alabama's going to once again take the lead in this sort of phony idea of how you impose allegiance and piety on our school children.
Yeah, well, it's a very real threat in that they're talking about defunding them by 25% of the state funds. Most schools are not going to be able to survive on that, and they know it. Now, how far this bill will go, who knows? But still, the very idea of, mandating that children have to pledge allegiance to the flag every morning, and the prayer, of course, you have to have a consent form from the parents. We'll see how that goes. But it's just, and the Ten Commandments in the schools. I mean, can we get down to some real legislation? Please, God. We've got Medicare pay cuts coming. We've got real federal problems here with the money coming into the state, and you guys are playing around with this stuff yet again. But
Josh, is this not who some of them really are? They don't care about the real problems. They think, I've been hearing it all my life. Well, if we just had prayer back in school, if we just had the Pledge of Allegiance, it doesn't change anything.
No, it never has. And, honestly, I believe this is the same group that told us that we couldn't have yoga in school because it was.
It is.
So anyway, but listen, this is a small-minded sort of approach to things. This is taking something. It's a feel-good approach for a lot of people. It's to say it's to conjure up these feelings of the Mayberry days that only exist in their mind, and say that when we took the prayer out of schools, that's what did it. Well, no, I would say it probably has something to do with the racism that you put into it, the segregation and the lack of funding, and the way that you set up funding so it excluded the schools with the majority minority students, and then you had the breakaway schools, such as the district in which the person who's proposing this bill, Reed Ingram is from. He's from a breakaway school
Yeah.
system out in Pike Road that left Montgomery, and then and they bitched constantly about the price of schools and how the schools were going down. And then when they moved out to Pike Road, they immediately implemented a tax on the folks out there, property tax, that was much greater than the one in Montgomery that he had been fighting against, because they knew all of a sudden when you start educating a bunch of white kids in the school, oh, hey, we need more funding out here to make sure that they get a proper education. But to hell with those
Yeah.
black kids. Listen, this is all of this, okay? It's all of this. It's a way for them to avoid saying, we have so screwed this up, and we know what does this. Let me tell you how we know this. Athletics. Look at the college athletes on campuses.
Yeah.
Those guys come from some of the most impoverished homes in the country out there. And every single one of them, if you can run a 4.240, almost every single one of them can manage to get through high school, and with a fine degree, get into college, enroll in courses, stay eligible to play ball, and most of them graduate with a college degree. Why does that happen? Because we put the resources behind those kids to make sure that
That's
happens.
right.
And we can almost guarantee it to above 90%. But yet you're telling me that we can't do this here, and our only chance is to put prayer back in? Yeah, get the hell out of here.
Of course, it's ridiculous. Hey, I tell you something that we only got a couple minutes here, but this past week, President Donald Trump came out and touted the benefits of CBD hemp. You know, he is the one that signed the 2018 Farm Bill that made hemp legal throughout the United States. And, you know, the president came out and said, listen, this hemp stuff's really good. This CBD stuff's really good. And especially for elderly folks or folks that are
So much
suffering.
so that he wanted it covered by Medicare.
Yeah, and Medicaid.
I mean,
so that people can get relief.
Wow.
And in Alabama, we're
Was
going
he
in a different
holding a
direction.
vial of Trump CBD when he did it? Listen, I agree with him on this. It's the second time this week that I've agreed with the Trump. Donald Trump Jr. also came out and criticized our sports gambling laws in this state. And listen, we all agree on this. CBD and hemp stuff is good. It's a good product. It's from a plant. It's derived. We know where it comes from. The reason people are fighting so hard against it is because it upends the pharmaceutical world and the big pharma folks that keep funding us and pushing these pills down our throat. That's the only reason people are pushing against it.
Do you think that the Trumpers in the legislature, the ones that kowtow and bootlick and all this stuff, could actually maybe change the law this next time so that they don't send people to prison for doing something that the president said, hey, I'm not doing it, but sounds pretty good to me? Do you think they'll have the guts to actually reverse
Don't
themselves?
hold your breath.
Well, I don't smoke it. I haven't tried it, but I hear you do have to hold your breath a little bit
For a second or two,
Anyway.
yeah.
But the thing is, look, we see the hypocrisy once again, and it was not a hemp oil. I think it was a vape pen, but I'm not sure, Josh. You may be watching closer. But really, in truth, you know, this is another one of these where they get hysterical and they want to pander to the base and they want to protect the children. Anytime they tell you it's for national security or for the children, they're lying about something. But, you know, it's just figured out what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. You're correct, and in this particular case, they couldn't even find the child that they needed to protect it from. Honestly,
Exactly, right.
I mean, it was. Really, we had one kid that got sick this one time,
Yeah.
and it was like a Ferris Bueller situation where somebody's daughter's aunt's niece's uncle understood that this kid had gotten sick somewhere sometime, and so we had to pass a law for this, and really this one was to protect the alcohol industry, and and to make sure that we weren't buying hemp products instead of alcohol products. And so, here we are.
Yep. Well, and that is the Alabama way. We have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, this past week, the Alabama Home Builders Association came out and spoke truth to power. And they said that these ICE raids, these immigration raids, are wrecking home building in Alabama, and that they're going to be years and years behind in being able to build homes. And if they build them, they're not going to be affordable, because it is the Mexican labor pool that has been building nice, affordable homes in Alabama for years and years. And now these people that are totally legal, and some of their crews are not legal, they're just leaving. They're just going away.
Yeah, some of the people that are legal are leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're terrified. Why wouldn't you be? I mean, how many people have they arrested already that have been legal, and they knew they were legal and arrested them anyway and tried to deport them? And so they're afraid. I don't blame them for being afraid. I'd be afraid too.
But the home builders have said, Josh, what you, me, and Susan and others have been talking about for a long time. These people do a great job. They're willing to do the hard work. They have good families and all that. And you think about where you live up in the Huntsville-Madison area, and all the homes that are there, and all the ones that need to be built for the incoming Space Command, and there's nobody to build them.
Yeah, no, it's tough in the back of the neighborhood that I currently live in. There's a whole new division back there that there's a lot of houses that have been sitting for a while, in some various state of build. I hear from a lot of people who say, well, they were underpaying these folks anyways, and they're taking advantage of this labor and stuff like that. I don't doubt that and I don't not only don't doubt it, I know that there was some of that took place. Okay, there was some of it, but I think that what you would find, because we flipped some houses, so I have some experience in dealing with folks with Hispanic crews and stuff. Because honestly, when you get into that line of work, when you start doing roofing and you start doing repair work, you start doing flooring and that sort of stuff, and you start putting out calls for people, what the folks who show up are Hispanic most of the time. All right,
yes, they are.
And those folks are making a good living doing this sort of thing. And I don't doubt that from time to time, folks who are here illegally are on those crews. They meet, they get over here, they have some connections, they come and they do some work on those crews. But by and large, a lot of those folks, I don't know if people, this is another problem that we have. People don't understand the various nuances of our immigration system, okay? Not all of these people are here illegally. Even the ones who have to go back from time to time, most of them are here on work visas. They come over and they prove themselves to be valuable folks. There are a variety of different ways that they can do this. And I just wish people would have a better understanding of that. If they did, they'd better understand what the Democrats are fighting for right now in this shutdown fight right now, because it's not about giving illegals health care. It's about providing health care to folks who are here legally, but going through the asylum process legally.
Right.
But that's a whole other conversation. You're right. In this, it's going to absolutely hamstring the building and of homes up in this area. It's going to drive the prices up. I mean, if you already got a house, I guess that's a great deal. Maybe we can sell at some point and make a ton of money. But if you don't, man, you're in a world of hurt.
Well, we were talking to someone who's in the building trade over here, and they were talking about, in his view, that the Hispanics who come to America were a lot like the Albanians who came here, even though many of them came after conflict of war, but pretty much similar. And he said they're the hardest working people. They just want to be here to support their families and build a better future. And he said they're the backbone.
One of the most important things that he said in my eyes is we used to call them Albanians. Now we call them Greeks.
Yeah, That was pretty astounding.
You know, I would say
situation.
too. You know, you could make a real argument that a lot of the folks who have come here from wherever south of our border have come here because of war. I mean, it's not necessarily a declared war, but they're escaping horrible conditions in which people are fighting day in and day out over the drug trade and other gang wars and cartel wars and other things, and they're leaving behind almost certain death in a lot of cases, or poverty, and so they're escaping those things. That's the reason why we have granted so many people asylum in this country, and we do tend to grant, not as many as come, but we grant a lot of folks asylum because they can prove that they are in a very terrible state.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, and this goes back to Ronald Reagan when he granted amnesty to what it was, some 13 million people who were here illegally. 40 years ago, the Democrats and the Republicans had a chance to fix immigration in this country. They did not do it, and they don't want to do it because it gives them something to fight about. And this has escalated under this administration. It's been one of the primary talking points. We're not arresting just criminals. We're arresting hardworking people who came here for a better quality of life, and now they're being thrown in jail. And look, I think people should come here legally, but if the Democrats and the Republicans wanted to fix immigration, they could. They do not. Josh,
to be fair, there was a bipartisan deal just a few months ago that was on the table that was going to fix the asylum system in this country, which is that is 90% of the problem that we have right now is the asylum system. That's the reason why so many folks are showing up here. We've essentially cut down in both the Obama administration, the Biden administration, and the Trump administration illegal crossings at the border. They have been cut way down. But what we do have is a problem with the asylum system because of the way it's set up in our Constitution. These are our laws that we're dealing with at this point, and you've got to go through Congress to change those laws, and that's why so many people have a problem with what Trump is doing.
But they don't want to change it because it gives them something to fight about. But anyway, you've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.